Oh, hi. Oh, fees and how to set. All right. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have so many doulas here. This is going to be amazing. So I am the doula Darcy, and I see so many familiar faces. So this is great. I have been a postpartum doula now for 10 years. And before that, I spent 10 years working in advertising and marketing and kind of the business side of the world. So that's been such a great asset to me as I started my postpartum doula business to have. I keep calling it like that left brain side. And I just know there's so many doulas who were so nurturing and empathetic and caring and so good at being doulas, but often struggle with the business and the marketing side of getting clients. So that's where my passion is now, and helping you guys get the word out about your services. And I know Krista feels the same way and kind of coming at it from a different angle. But both of us, what we've kind of been talking about lately is we want to remove all the hurdles that you guys have in terms of just business and marketing and getting clients, so that you're out there in the world working and helping moms and babies and all the families, all the birthing people. So that is ultimately, at the end of the day, why we're doing this Dear Doula series, and kind of why we're doing all these new things. Also, I have to plug, I'm starting a new membership for doulas. It's a monthly membership. I have my Postpartum Doula Academy, but I heard from so many of you that you're just starting out or you just can't afford it right now. So this monthly membership, it's called My Doula Village. It's a much more affordable option. Right now I'm looking for founding members. So if you want to help me build this, it's going to only be $39 a month. So it's kind of not even created yet, but it'll be Zoom calls. I know there's definitely going to be guest expert interviews. Monday night, we had Brian from Birthing Your Brand talking about Google your business profiles. Anyway, I'll talk more about that later. I'm supposed to only be introducing myself, but anyway, go ahead, Krista.
The excitement is palpable. Hello, everyone. I'm Krista Maltais. I am an advanced postpartum doula and postpartum doula trainer with Doula International. I have been working as a postpartum doula for almost 15 years now. Additionally, I'm an advanced lactation counselor, and I'm also the owner of Relief, Parenting, Respite, and Resource Center in Hampton, New Hampshire. And as Darcy said, we are both really passionate about trying to support as many families as possible. And in order for that to happen, there needs to be, more opportunity for training, more opportunities for getting out there in the world. And so between my kind of focus on helping doulas get trained, get certified, and Darcy's experience as, business marketing, between the two of us, we've worked together for at least a decade now. And so we're excited to be able to share what's worked for us and help people kind of troubleshoot some of their own barriers so that we can continue to support families. So we're excited that you're all here. And as Darcy said, today we're going to be really kind of focusing on different scenarios that doulas will encounter, and just help build a little bit of confidence about how you may be able to handle these certain somewhat tricky situations. And so we can see in the chat here, we've got people coming from all around the country. We've got some people from Georgia, from Massachusetts, Texas, New Hampshire, Arizona. So it'll be great to, again, get all of your questions addressed. So as things come up, plug them in the chat. And of course, Darcy and I are always here should you have additional questions. And so we'll make sure that we share resources and ways to connect with us as well. So welcome.
Yeah. So I want to answer first, because I know Georgie is here and she said she can't stay the whole time, but she submitted a great question. She is asking about certain scenarios where trying to ascertain what a client wants over Zoom support sessions versus what they've just read about and what you're used to offering. So actually, Georgie, can you unmute and just maybe clarify your question a little bit?
I think she may.
Yeah,
I think she may be off screen at the moment.
Okay, so when she comes back, because actually I'm not clear about what she wanted to, but the most common question that we get, and maybe we can start here, is how to kind of get the gumption to charge what you're worth, or to even charge. Oh, here she comes. So let's do that. So Georgie, I was just saying, do you want to unmute and ask your question? And just clarify, you said when someone, wants to get support via Zoom, but their expectation.
So one of the questions that I'm trying to work out is, you can offer so many things. How do you work out what it is your client actually wants? Because it's quite hard to work out virtual services as it is. So it's trying to work out what they've heard of, what would actually work for them, and how to go about it sort of so that they get what they need.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the way I have been tackling this, and something I kind of came to in my in-person work is, and I do this now via Zoom, is like, first thing I do when I walk through the door, hi, how are you? Wash my hands. How's everything going? And then I'm like, okay, mom, what do you need the most right now? Like, I know we talked about that you're, blah, 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 whatever they said in their prenatal interview or whatever, but, were you up 12 times last night? Do you need a nap, or is the laundry stressing you out? So I just do the same thing on a Zoom, like, hi, how are you? And be like, what I want to make sure you get the most out of our session today on Zoom. Like, what is your biggest burning question or problem or thing you want to address? And let's start there to make sure. And so then, you kind of let them set the agenda of how it's going to go. And then you make sure it's also, there's a term for it too, about like, you're letting them tell you what their view of success will be. Like, they're going to, at the end of the session, feel like it was a success because you met their biggest need. So just flat out ask, and if somebody doesn't know, like, I was just talking about this with someone else the other day. And I can't remember if it was public or not, but some people, moms, especially right now with COVID, they're so isolated. Some of them just want to chat. Like, they just want some adult time to just talk. So, you might feel like, oh my God, they're paying me and we're talking about the weather or TV shows, but that might be the most important thing that they need right now. And they might not be able to verbalize that, but if they're happy and they're still talking, just keep going.
And I would say to kind of go along with that. So I think the word that you may have been searching for, Darcy, was objectives, right? So determining what the goal. And so, I agree. There's particular kinds of communication styles that we talk about a lot during at least the Doula International training regarding active and reflective communication. And so, I think really falling back on that, or if that's not something that you had particular training in, any of you, or if you're looking for more information, try and search for terms called reflective or active listening. And so many parents, I think, are trying to switch gears, as Darcy said, about like, okay, what are my priorities? And it can be hard. I always use my hands. It often to me seems like that pig pen, right? Where it's just like swirling massive chaos and craziness. And so as a doula, especially working in a Zoom platform, I find it really helpful to just, again, go through that acronym of being near, right? Doing that nurturing, educating on whatever particular questions they have, because everybody always has questions, and assessing, really like looking at them. And that's sometimes more challenging to do on Zoom, right? Because we're not picking up on like the overall state of the house or whatnot. But once you again start to tap into some of these reflective listening skills, you can see based on, again, how someone's, the brightness in their eyes or the bags underneath their eyes, or, their overall level of engagement, how they're really doing. And so clarifying, and I've also found that many of the clients that at least I've been seeing through Zoom really are focused in a way that's different than being in person. And so they often, again, just know, all right, when I'm checking in with Krista, these are the list of questions that I have already, or, this is the thing that I just have been really needing to get off my chest and I need a safe space to talk about it. So does that address your question, Georgie?
I've also been encouraging people, you know, like if I email them or text them before we set up a Zoom session, I'll be like, as you're going through your day, write down, make a list of the questions that come up. And then they come to the Zoom with their little notebook. And that's really helpful. So to kind of set that precedent. So awesome. All right.
And as Darcy was saying earlier too, so like kind of switching gears back to in terms of like your value and addressing that and where do you try and set that? I think there's again a whole spectrum of how people feel comfortable with that, but just knowing that we're still providing such really valuable and important support, and be it in person or over the phone or on a Zoom call. And so people may have different levels of comfort in terms of if they want to charge the same or not. I personally have been charging the same because we're still doing our work. And yes, I could see. Okay, so yes, we could definitely share with a prenatal intake. That would be great feedback. So to just reiterate what Darcy always likes to say, right? Like, charge what you're worth. And if anybody has any particular questions or comments about that, I think that this would be a great time to have a dialogue around charging and what people are finding.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think especially this is two prongs, like especially as you're first starting out, it's hard to just charge. Sometimes it's hard to charge. I remember being really hesitant. Like I was like, oh my God, my client, I should just do this for free. But we're providing such value. And I think it even as you start working and as we're switching to virtual and you feel you're like, oh my God, I just sat on a Zoom and listened to this mom complain about how little sleep she got last night. Like there's no way I can charge $30 an hour for that or whatever your rate is, but you can. I mean, if you think about, I could go on and on about this, but the value that doulas and postpartum doulas provide, but especially now during a pandemic when moms are even more isolated than they were before, you know, if someone is willing to pay you $30 an hour to just chat on Zoom, like that, they're receiving value. They feel like it's worth it. So, and the thing that really helped me start to, charge a real rate when I first got going was that the realization that came to me that if I want to do this, I would, I feel like I was born to be a postpartum doula. If I have to do this, I have to earn an income. I have to replace, my previous job. These were the bills that had to be paid from from my work. So here's what I need to charge to make that happen. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go back to my previous job, and then I'm not going to help any families, and I'm not going to fulfill my dream of being a postpartum doula. So if you're out there charging $6 an hour, it's not going to, maybe you're wealthy and you don't need to pay your bills, but most of us have bills to pay. If you're not charging what you need to pay your bills and make this a worthwhile career for you, whether that's full-time or 5 hours a week or whatever you need, it's not going to work. And then you're not going to be able to be a postpartum doula. So that is what really helped me be like, okay, here's what I need to charge so that this can be my job. So.
And I agree. I think it's really important, for all of us as we kind of have to switch our focus and switch our gears to the business side of being a doula, right? Really adding up what are the expenses that you have just to walk through someone's door, or just to like be able to have a space to have a Zoom chat with someone, right? And so that may be childcare for other kids in your house, or it may be gas. It may be setting up, a professional Zoom account and the monthly fee that goes along with that. So really be thoughtful about what expenses are you having to take on. And then I, again, encourage everyone to always go and just search who's around your area and what are they charging. Get a sense of, again, that range. And then that is usually a good start in terms of trying to figure out how much to charge. There's also a great resource called doulamatch.net. And so that's a great tool to be able to just plug in based on your area and see who is out there, who's already certified, who's working towards their certification, what programs have they been certified through. And that may also be a good way to gauge where where the value is, because it's very, very location dependent. So Janice asked a question about dividing the rate, and I believe it was Lisa had a question or a comment. So let's start with, was it Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa, why don't you unmute and tell us about your mistake?
Hi. Okay, hi. So I have a client that actually just had twins, and I just have spoken to Krista about it a little bit through email, but we were supposed to have our prenatal, and then she went into the hospital, so that got rescheduled, or I didn't even know if we were going to be able to have the prenatal before she had the babies. In the end, they were able to just keep her in the hospital. So I ended up having a prenatal while she was in the hospital with her and her husband. And I think I was trying to get so much in the prenatal and try to get so much information. I think I overwhelmed them. And one of the things that I did not know, I knew she wanted to formula feed, but I didn't know all the reasons why. And so when I asked her, just if she could, just explain to me why she chose that method of feeding. That was fine to ask her that. And then I went on to say, would she be willing to express colostrum for the twins if she's choosing to formula feed? And I think just the way I worded that was wrong. I should never have said willing, because that was judgy. And also I just came off my CLC training, so I'm all hyped up on nursing, and then she said no to that. And I kind of, right before she had said no, I went on a little bit about the benefits of colostrum. And then I said, I just want you guys to have all the information, and then you can make an informed decision. Really what I should have said was, would you like more information about colostrum? Or would you like more information about how to dry your milk up?
That's a great observation, Lisa. Definitely. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna say, because when I got off the call, I felt terrible. I felt like the call was going great, and then I just felt oh, and I didn't even sleep that night. I was like, they're not gonna hire me. They're gonna think I'm judging them. Anyway, my first day with them was this morning. And as soon as I walked in the kitchen, she was still sleeping. The dad was chatting, and he said to me, he said, Emily, she's very nervous and has a lot of anxiety. And when you brought up the colostrum, it really upset her. And I just apologized to him. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And so I felt like I really had to work on my relationship with her today, for her to trust me and for her not to feel like I was judging her. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the prenatal. That learn from your mistakes, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think there's a lot of really key pieces there, right? We're always working, and for anybody who's taken a training with me, I always talk about the 4 agreements, and part of that 4 agreements is you always just try your best. And that looks different on any given day and based on your experience and the level of information that you have and so forth. And so, it's always a practice, right? Our work as a doula, it's always a practice about our communication techniques and, how we read a person. And I've stumbled, I have slipped up, but I think you handled it really well in the fact that you recognized it. And then you took that step to say, you know what, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, I'm sorry, and I'm going to try and make that better. And I think that approach to any communication situation is really valuable and really important. And so as doulas, right, as we're, again, kind of coming into all of these new roles, and I mean, here I am almost 15 years later, I think if we go through with our eyes open and our hearts open, that is such a fundamental factor, right? If we go in just thinking we're the experts, then we're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to learn from other people and other experiences. And we're also, again, perhaps going to be so excited about what we want to share and in our own like box as a as an expert or a professional, that it can sometimes come across as being judgy. And we all know that that's one of the things we're all trying to avoid. So thanks, Lisa, for sharing that.
Yeah. And that is such a tricky situation. But I think, I mean, all you can do is what you did and apologize and show her that you're not, and you weren't judging her. You were just, I sometimes like, I feel like that very similar thing happened to me. And if you just say like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm here as a doula to support whatever you choose. But we're trained to provide evidence-based information, and I'm sorry if I just went a little too far, but I, do whatever you want. I'm not, so I think if they see that you're authentically sorry and authentically not going to judge them, every shift from now on, they'll be fine with that. So I think you probably handled it perfectly. And that is one of the tricky parts, but it's just like anything else. You learn as you go. And I think, yeah, Krista.
So I wanted to address, Janice had a question in the chat here asking about how do you divide lactation consulting in combination with postpartum doula work, and does this increase your fee? And I've seen a number of people, again, handle it differently. The way that I have generally done things is I reassess where my rates are based on, again, have I taken additional training? Is my schedule getting so full that I can perhaps increase my rates, right? So we'll all get to a point, hopefully, where, again, you've done the work of marketing, you've put yourself out there, you're making those connections, and hopefully you will get to a place where you're like, okay, wow, like I'm really booking up here. And that's usually a good time to reflect back and say, all right, do I need to adjust my rates accordingly? Am I in that demand? Which can, again, bring up a whole bunch of concerns or feelings of like, ooh, right? Like that makes me feel apprehensive for so many doulas. But again, this is a business, and trying to remember the business side, even though our business is caring for others. And this, I also like to point out, is one of my favorite reasons for having such a close doula friend and colleague like Darcy, because the two of us over the years have really encouraged each other when we get to that, like, I don't know, it feels like, right? To be like, you can do it, right? And cheer each other on. So having this kind of support and community is really important.
It is.
So to answer Janice's question, for myself, I will usually, if someone hires me on as a postpartum doula, I will generally say, you're getting my education as a lactation professional amongst that. That's part of why you're hiring me, is because I also come with additional information and training. But I will clarify and say to them, when you sit down to nurse, or when you're pumping, or, you're chest feeding, whatever if there is breast milk involved, then I'm going to kind of switch gears, and I'm going to be more in my lactation role, because I have different standards of practice. I have a different code of ethics. I have a different way of assessing things than I do when I'm over here as a postpartum doula. And so just making sure that, again, I'm clarifying the expectation, I'm clarifying my role, just so that I'm practicing, with best way possible. And then in terms of your question, Janice, about when could you go ahead and pursue that certification, again, I think this is up to the individual doula. If you're feeling like you have a lot of questions that are still you'd like more information about, or if it's something that you'd like to pursue as a passion, or you feel that it would bring a lot of benefit to your families that you're working with, go for it. But it's definitely not needed. And there are a number of different ways that you can, again, like get some of that information with attending hospital support groups, meeting up with other doulas, partnering with lactation professionals in your community and so forth, attending La Leche League meetings, so that, again, you can be able to pick up on some of that information before deciding that you would then, pursue an additional certification and the time and the money involved with that.
So I'll
I'm
just
just-
say I'm the same way. I'm a CLC, and I at first was going to have different rate scenarios, and it's just too. At the end of the day, it was just too confusing for people that wanted to hire me. So my rate is my rate. If I'm giving you lactation advice while I'm there, great. If you're formula feeding, it's still the same rate. And for me, it's also kind of I think Krista and I don't know if you mentioned I was getting my cord, but every time you and I have raised our rates, we've done it together. Like we call okay, let's do it. So we both go up together. But I think you and I charge a little bit more than other people that are postpartum doulas. And for me, that justifies it. Because you can pay a little bit more per hour because you're also getting, you're getting the lactation advice baked in. To answer your question, Janice, sometimes I do, and I think Krista does too, get calls like people that don't want to doula, but they just have some breastfeeding questions. So I'll go, and I do charge a little bit more for that just because of the time. That's a flat fee of $100, whether I'm there an hour or 3 hours. But just in case I'm only there an hour, it covers my time.
And this is where it's really great, again, to kind of go and see who's in your area, because you want to make sure that you're not underselling yourself, or that you're not, setting yourself up in with a really astronomical rate, because then you may not get as many clients. And so when, let's see, there was another question here about, do I not bring anything, something specific up? Hold on, the question was, do I not give advice that I wasn't asked about because I informed them in advance that I was there for breastfeeding as well? Again, my philosophy and approach to my doula work is very much in that near acronym. It is so ingrained, especially as a trainer, right? So I may not, let's see, I might need some clarification about the question. I will bring things up that I'm observing. I will, make sure again that I'm clarifying if there's particular questions, or if, we're working on different approaches. But Danielle, if you have any clarification, I'd want to make sure I address your question appropriately.
I know I can't think of a specific scenario, but I do know that there have been times when I've said, okay, the lactation counselor part of me just needs you to know this about, or I don't know, maybe you should be pumping more than you are based on the scenario. Or, sometimes I'll say little things like that, like the lactation counselor in me just needs you to know this little nugget. But most of the time, if they're already breastfeeding, they've got a bazillion questions like that. They're just running the show in terms of what we're talking about. So there's not really too much that comes up. I don't know.
And with the donut training, I'm not sure about other organizations, but for at least the trainings that I do, and as a Doula International trainer, there is a big section built into the basic 27 plus hour workshop around breastfeeding. And then there's additional work that needs to be done to get more information and attend a bit more of a professionals basics class, so that way, as a doula, you can still troubleshoot so many of those common scenarios. And that's definitely within our realm as postpartum doulas, to be able to offer that kind of basic kind of support. And there, even with my advanced lactation background, there are still plenty of times that I like to bring in additional IBCLC support and whatnot, because again, people have different experience, they have different filters, different eyes, and I may not pick up on something that another professional would. So I'm always a big fan of collaborating as well.
All right, the questions are rolling in. Okay, so Liz, well, first of all, Janice asked, Krista and I both did our CLC through Healthy Children's Center for Breastfeeding. I think, which is on Cape Cod. So and they do trainings all over the place. So
Yes, and right now they're doing online program. And Lisa, I just saw your question about how do you find an IBCLC. So for those of you who may not be familiar, that's an international board certified lactation consultant. Usually if you go to any hospital, that's usually the first place that you can look. There's also a number of different directories that you can look. So even if you were just going to do a quick Google search about like IBCLC near me, you should be able to see who might be in your area. And then from there, it's just like any other, professional relationship, right? And you like do that networking, see again, if it's like a person that you would feel comfortable referring your clients to, because there's so many different personality styles and approaches to things that you want to make sure that it's in line with somebody that you would want to work with.
yes,
And I would say all professionals.
yeah, but IBCLCs are great people to network with because it's good to have a few that you can refer to, but they're also getting all these calls. They're the perfect person to be like, okay, we just solved your breastfeeding problems, but like you need a postpartum doula and here's one for you. So definitely reach out, find the IBCLCs in your area, particularly if they're like like freestanding, not working at the hospital. But even if they do work at the hospital, like I said, that you can get a lot of referrals for doula work from them. Okay, Patty wants advice on mentoring. She wants to shadow somebody, and I get it, Patty. I called Krista and I was hoping to shadow her when I first started, and I didn't, but I ended up, we just talked and I learned so much from Krista. But I love your idea of perhaps there could be some role-playing sessions in the My Doula Village group. I love that idea. So let's totally do that. All right. And then Liz wants to know what business models we use to set up your business. Oh, setting up your business with a partner. That is a great question. She's asking LLC or S Corp. I'm so confused on how to legally set up our business so that we're taxed appropriately. If you have a partner, I would say meet with an accountant or a tax attorney to get that best answer, because honestly, I don't know. But I know when you're just you on your own, I'm just a sole proprietor. I don't even have an LLC. And I know everybody says that protects you from being sued. And I do have another business with my husband where we run expos. That is an LLC. I don't know. I just never did it for my doula business. I don't know. How about you, Krista?
Yeah, so I would agree. I would say if you're thinking about partnering with somebody formally, having a really clear contract and agreement between the two of you up front is going to be really critical, because with any new business venture, there's always going to be stresses. So you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page up front while everybody's feeling happy and excited. It's almost like liability insurance, right? So like make sure that you have all of your questions addressed. And that's really where, again, an accountant and a business attorney would be a really great resource to have, both of those people. In terms of like an LLC or sole proprietor for general business practice, I had spent years as a sole proprietor. And then when I opened up my parenting center, I made sure that I was an LLC. And, there are some pros and cons. Like as an LLC, there is usually some, there's paperwork, there's usually fees involved. You need to, address things with your particular state or where your local government is to register your business and so forth. And so there are some more steps involved, and it's not always needed, especially as a newer doula. But that may be something that you want to, again, evaluate. There's also some really awesome resources that are free, which I'm always a big fan of, especially when starting business. So SCORE, SCORE, is an international, I believe they're international, but they're definitely national business advice. And so they have different professionals who either volunteer their time or it's free of charge for anybody who's interested. And it's basically you apply and you tell them what your needs are, and they set you up with a business mentorship, which is really incredible. And they also have a lot of really wonderful templates and other resources on their website. So I encourage everybody to look at that as well.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And I had seen a question a bit before here about, oh, what do you call yourself? So just to make sure, like, clarifying on terms, I think is always really important, because we want to make sure that we're conveying appropriate information to the families that we're working with or that we want to work with, and other people in our community. So for instance, if you are working towards your certification, you can either say you're just a postpartum doula, because you are, there's no licensure around that. Or you could say that you're a doula working towards your certification with such and such an organization, whatever organization you choose from. But you want to make sure that you're not creating a term that could be misconstrued as like a professional credential. So for instance, the term DONA trained for Doula International, for, you know, the general public, that could seem a little confusing, because it would sound as if, again, it could be a credential. And while you have trained with Doula International, that sounds different. And so our words matter. In terms of lactation, the formal credential, after at least the program that Darcy and I had gone through, would be a certified lactation counselor, or I am, technically it says an advanced lactation consultant, but personally, I like to say advanced lactation counselor, because I'm not a consultant in a similar way as an IBCLC. And so that's my preference. And then I just, even though it's different than the actual credential, I think it conveys my role a bit more clearly, because it's still non-medical, whereas an IBCLC is considered generally like a healthcare professional.
Yeah, so I was going to say, in the US, that's where it comes up. The only tricky issue with it is, like, you don't call yourself a lactation consultant unless you're an IBCLC. But I
How do
didn't.
you, I just have a question. Where
Sure.
do they get trained? Are they medical nurses and then they become that? Is that what it is?
There are like 3 different pathways, Janice. So if someone is already an RN, or they have a medical background, that's
Okay.
one track.
Okay.
There are also 2, you know, different kinds of tracks, but it's a very structured, formal process with a lot of different steps. So if that's something that you're interested in, you could just, again, do like pathways to IBCLC as a Google search, and you would see the
Okay.
different pathways available.
Thanks.
All right. So Tamara says, I am an NP and in the process of becoming a postpartum doula and CBC. How do you suggest I go about it when charging? Well, not charging, but separating the roles. So what's an NP? I don't even know.
Nurse practitioner.
Oh, right. Okay. So,
Go ahead.
no, you answer. You'll give a better answer. Go ahead.
I always find that just clarifying all the time, right? So like helping just from the start, just put the expectation out there. These are my different roles, but I have, again, different ways that I can interact with you as a client in these different capacities. And so this also, again, is going to be really important if you're thinking about getting liability insurance, because as a nurse practitioner, somebody in the medical field, that's going to automatically kind of put you in a different bracket in terms of clarification and liability insurance and whatnot. So in terms of structuring it, these are, again, all really valuable and amazing specialties and experiences and, you know, professionalism that you can draw on to set yourself apart from other people in the community. So I think it's just a matter of, again, from from a liability perspective, and from, really search within yourself about how would you want to incorporate those different roles and those different aspects. There are some doulas, and they really like to specialize being able to use some of their nursing role, but that nursing role, so for instance, with medically fragile children or something in that kind of scenario, or some kind of health complication with mom, or the birthing person, the nurse side of that is going to take precedence. And then you have the additional skills and nurturing of being a doula versus doula as the primary thing. And then stepping outside of the doula to be a nurse. Does that make sense? I can't, who was the question from?
Yes, she says
Okay.
yes.
Right.
So awesome. Cool.
Okay.
All right. I think we answered all the questions so far in the chat. I wanted to answer one that came in about, and it's always one that comes up, about imposter syndrome. And that's, like, who am I to go out there and be a postpartum doula? And my first answer is you're you, and you're most postpartum doulas I talk to feel like they're born for this. They're called to this. So that's your ticket right there to know that you need to do this. But I get it. And me 10 years in, sometimes I still have imposter syndrome. So it's the way I like to overcome it and encourage people to overcome it is think about, and this is maybe not the way to talk about being a postpartum doula, but at the end of the day, our job is not that hard. We just have to show up, and we are going to make this birthing person's life better. And they're going to be thrilled at the end of the day. So in some ways, we have a really easy job. If we just show up and ask mom a few questions and make her a sandwich, she's going to be like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Because no one else is doing that for her. So I think sometimes when I get stuck, especially now, I tell people who are having trouble getting going with virtual service, think of these poor people right now having a baby in a global pandemic. They're completely alone. They need you. They need you to find them on Zoom, whatever, find you online. They need to connect with you via Zoom. They need you to come to their house and hold their baby so they can shower and take a nap. We as postpartum doulas are so needed. And if there's a dozen doulas in your town, I bet there's 1,000 babies that are born. There's plenty of babies, plenty of families to go around. And even if you are in a place where there's a lot of doulas, you're going to offer, your personality is going to connect with 1/12 of the population, the moms that are out there that want to hire you. So
I agree.
That's my little spiel. What would you like to add, Krista, about imposter syndrome?
I think this is, I talk at length about this. I was actually just before our call having a one-on-one session with a doula regarding this imposter syndrome, and it's real, right? But I think it goes back to a larger context of, we all have doubts, we all have question ourselves, and I think particularly people in caregiving roles, right? We're so used to just giving and being present for other people, but we have a hard time just accepting that for ourselves and that general sense of worth. And so two things regarding imposter syndrome. The first is you're valuable, you're worth it, and you bring value to people just by being you. The second part, my mom used to tell me this all the time growing up, but fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so even if you don't feel it, show up and show up with confidence, show up with, again, open eyes and open heart. And when you show up, then you'll start to realize, yeah, you can do this. And yes, people are really appreciative and value what you do. And then that just kind of feeds into it. And at some point or another, that imposter syndrome will start to fade away. And then we'll all be here to keep cheering you on through those moments of excitement and through those moments of like, I'm not so sure, right?
I think this also, you know, and I remember feeling this way too, that when you, especially when you're first starting out, like, oh my gosh, I need to become a lactation counselor. I need to become a sleep specialist. I need all these extra, you know, I need to be an expert in everything. And at the end of the day, you don't. The role of postpartum doula is not to be the expert. You know, we're certainly not giving any medical advice. You know, we can always say, I don't know the answer to that. Let me look that up for you. Let me check with these people I know in my referral network. You know, that's always okay. But even more often than not, you know, I think we remember, and Lisa, you said this about your prenatal interview, like you're so excited. You want to do all the things and cover all the topics. I remember, you know, going to first shifts and being like, okay, I have to cure her postpartum depression, solve the issues in her marriage, and teach her about swaddling. And this, you know, like I have to do all the things and talk about the benefits of breastfeeding, you know, in this 4-hour shift. And it's just, you don't have to do everything. You have to, that's another reason that's great to be like, okay, mom, what do you want out of today? And, you know, it's usually very simple. You don't need 5 gajillion extra trainings. You have what it takes to provide mom with a listening ear, a caring, you know, environment, and you will provide huge value. So,
And I would like to just like finish up by saying too, you know, like going on that as well. You know, 2 different things. Like it's not our role to fix either as a doula, right? We cannot come in and fix something for somebody, but what we can do is listen and be alongside them and hold that space for them to process and to like learn more information and to just be with them as they're making decisions to fix whatever, if they want to fix something, right? So like there's that too. So like kind of take some of the pressure off. And then on top of that, you know, sometimes again, it can feel so overwhelming for new parents to be like, I don't even know, like I need you to, right? So I'll try and really simplify that by just saying like, if you had a magic wand right now, what would that look like? Right. And that always kind of catches people off guard when you say magic wand, but it gets their attention and it gives them a moment to just be like, huh, I would go and sleep, or I, you know, whatever, like it comes up and it gives you again an opportunity to just like slow the process down a little bit while they reflect and you can assess. So again, these are all different kinds of techniques that take a little practice. It's definitely you know, stuff that I discuss in training and discuss, you know, with clients as or so sorry, with doulas rather, as they're kind of working towards their certification. And then afterwards too, because even after you get your certification, it's not like things magically just become awesome, right? It's not like 12 weeks postpartum and parents are like, I got this, I'm rocking it now, right? So we always need to have a network of support. And I'm always really excited to be able to provide that for doulas. And so I'll take a moment to plug myself and some things that are coming up as well. So I have, yep, go ahead. Nope, go for it.
I want you to do that, but I have a really quick story about imposter syndrome that I just remembered.
Mhm.
When I was a newer doula, you referred a family to me because you were too busy. And it was a family you had worked with before and they were having their second baby. And so I was a little nervous because I was like, oh my God, they've had the best of the postpartum doulas. And now I'm coming in here and I was so nervous. So then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to ask her right up front in the prenatal interview. So I remember asking her, what was the best part about working with Krista? Like, what was your favorite thing about it? And
I don't know. So I'm nervous.
oh, so I thought she'd be like, oh, it's the way Krista could quote statistics and, you know, had all this in-depth knowledge because Krista is really good at that. And this mom thought about it for a while and she was like, you know, Krista made me breakfast every time she was here. She made me scrambled eggs. It's just like, well, I know how to make scrambled eggs and I can do this. So that's it. Just, I thought of that story to prove my point that at the end of the day, that's what it was. So, okay. So yes. And I would add the #1 indicator of female entrepreneur success is a group of other women. And you might not think of yourself as an entrepreneur, but if you're a doula and you don't work for an agency, you're an entrepreneur, you're starting a business. So you need a group of women cheering you on. And I know that's gender centric, but it's the way it was a Harvard Business Review study. So go ahead, Krista. So tell us how you're helping doulas after they're trained.
Yes. So as I said at the beginning, am a Doula International trainer. So I have a variety of different training options that are going to be coming up, either 4-day trainings that are usually held over the weekend. And I've also started doing 14-week training to help bring people, again, a bit more in depth over the course of 14 weeks, where we cover the curriculum in addition to the certification requirements. So it's designed to move people through the certification process very quickly. And for any doula who has already completed their training and is just looking for some more formal mentorship, some like group support, some individual guidance from me, I am doing an 8-week accelerated certification program that really, again, just kind of holds people accountable through that certification process. And so the next round of that's going to be coming up starting in January after the holidays. So I'm really excited that so many of us were here together today, and that you have some really awesome questions. Darcy and I, again, are always really excited to help people and find different ways of supporting, either individually or in group settings. And so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if everybody could give me a thumbs up, I would love to be take a quick screenshot of all of us to share, if that's cool with everyone. If not, you can, put your video off screen, but if that's okay, everybody count down, because I'll take a screenshot and then we can all share, being like, yeah, doulas, we're out there and doing it in the world, because it's all about just, again, lots of networking. So everybody wants to smile. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Awesome.
Wait,
all right.
One more. I got to get a photo for my Instagram. So everybody leave. Yay, this has been so amazing. Thank you all for tuning in. And I would love to have, if you loved this session and want more of this in your life, join my Doula Village right now. It's only $39 a month if you join now. Become one of the founding members and help me create it. I want to make it a village where, you're getting the support that you need. So, and I called it my Doula Village because my favorite description of postpartum doulas is that we are the women of the village helping the women of the village. But we need a village too. So that's what it is. So let me know. Awesome. Yes, Susie's already in there. Patty's already in there. So yes. So yeah, so great. Thank you guys so much for being here. And we have one more next week. We're talking about, same Zoom link, common scenarios that come up when you're working with clients. Is that what it is, Krista? Yeah.
I believe so.
Common scenarios in client work. So we'll talk virtual scenarios and in person. So hope to see you all next week, same time, same Zoom link.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.